Hello, hello.
Good evening,
Sir.
sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Okay.
Yes,
Good
sir.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon, sir.
No, no. Now let me share my problem.
Good afternoon,
afternoon,
sir.
sir.
Good afternoon. I have to share a problem with you. The problem is from morning today morning we don't have the line electricity, and whatever support system were there all are exhausted. That is why I will be presenting the thing not in the screen. I cannot share the screen because line is not there. I will be, you open your book and I will be discussing book. And as soon as, in fact, they have informed that line will come by 3:30, but it is already 4 line, no line is there. You,
Okay.
will, as soon as line is available, I will be sharing the screen. But for now, we will have to go by the book. You open the book and we will be taking the class by directly taking your book. And now this is for today about cognitive psychology, language. As you know, language is also an important, very important aspect of cognitive psychology. And in this unit 3, block 3, this is block 3, language. Unit 1, language and language acquisition. Unit 2, language processing, comprehension and language expression. Unit 3, multilingualism and cognition. Unit 4, language and speech disorder. These are the things we are supposed to cover in this unit today. And let me begin from the book. If line will be available at any point of time, I will be going to sharing the screen. Now, language. First one is language acquisition and having the objective like this. The structure of the language. The first one is the structure of the language, or we can say what are the different characteristics of language. By definition, language is a system of symbols and rules. That means whenever you take up any language for your reference, it is a system of symbols. Every word, every image, everything is a kind of symbol. And there are some rules to govern. There are some rules to make the symbols used for you to communicate. So first of all, language is a system of symbols and rules that is used for meaningful communication. One, symbol. Second, having certain rules for combination, and the objective is for communication. You communicate through your language. And language symbols, as I have told you, language are symbols. Language symbols consists of sounds, gestures, or written characters. There are three different types of symbols that one use in language. One, some are sound when you use the language verbally, and there are also certain kinds of gestures. You, whenever you are using language, you also play in your body, and we call it body language. And then also written characters. You know that there are, whenever you are using any language, there is some written aspects of it. And those symbols, what they do, they represent objects, actions, events, and ideas. Some common idea about what a language is. Whenever you are using symbols and expressing yourself for communication, it is, these are the three modes: gestures, non-verbal communication, as gestures, sounds as verbal communication, and writing as written communication. And language, they represent things like actions, things like objects. Whenever you say a tiger, means you are referring to an object. And whenever you are describing something has happened on the road, then you are describing this event. And there are also certain ideas like your theories, models, whatever you are describing or understanding, that it's events. Symbols enable people to refer to objects that are in another place or events. These are some of the kinds. A language is meaningful and therefore can be understood by other users of that language. Another characteristic is that a language is a meaningful communication, and therefore any user of that language can understand that meaning. A language is generative, which means that symbols of a language can be combined to produce infinite numbers of messages. Now you know, whenever language is used, there are many more things. When you combine language symbols, they come up with several kinds of things. Same words, when you report it in different ways also, you get different communications. Therefore, it is generative. Generative means it is creative, it produces. Khali, it's not a passive structure only, it has some generative capacity. A language has rules governed by symbols, that you know, and particularly we call them as rules of grammar or grammar in language. Now, this is what is we call language or characteristics of language. Now, the building blocks of language. Now, when any language you take, any language you speak, it has certain basic substances or basic things on which the language is created. And the first level, it is also in an hierarchy. And the first level is a phoneme. Language begins with the phoneme. It is the sound part of the language. That means whenever any language is you are using, you begin with a very smallest unit of sound, and that is the phoneme. And then morpheme, smallest unit of sound. As they combine, you get into morpheme. Morpheme means the smallest unit of language which you understand meaningfully. Means phonemes you just cannot understand. They are not meaningfully acquired. But morphemes is the next higher level which has a meaning. Whenever someone is saying any morpheme, you get some meaning out of that. And then after morpheme, for example, the word disliked has three morphemes. Morphemes you see, dis, like, ed. These three things have certain connotations, some meanings. But then comes syntax. At the next level of language, these are called hierarchy of language structure. As you move on beyond morphemes, then you are supposed to do things by certain rules. We call them syntax. It's a system of rules that governs how words can be meaningfully arranged for phrases or sentences. Now, in the syntax level, you cannot make any, you cannot make the words to coin any way. Actually, morphemes for a words are there. Next to morpheme, there is another structure, the words. And when you combine the words, you have to follow certain rules. You know, noun, adjective, pronoun, adverb, how verb, how they will be organized in a sentence to be meaningfully communicated. And now the building blocks are phonemes, morphemes, words, and syntax. These are the structural aspects of language. And now next part of the thing is language acquisition. You know, when a child is born, he or she is not acquainted or she has not developed any specific language to communicate. He or she doesn't have any way to communicate by language. And naturally, there is, as he grows, as the child grows, he passes through different stages, and some common stages, very common for all children, are as follows. These are the some stages of language acquisition. Queen. Some says that as soon as the child is born, he is crying, he or she is crying. And crying is also a part of the formation of his or her language. It is the beginning of the language, crying. And then, but the formal way, it has been said that cooing. Cooing means vowel sounds, mostly cooing in infants, oral expression that expresses the production of vowel sounds. When you observe a child growing, first is cooing, some sound, vowel sounds he or she will utter. And that is the first stage or the beginning of language. That means the child is ready to develop the language. And then after queuing for some months, after queuing, then babbling, which comprises consonants as well as vowels. Now you see how things are going on. In the first phase, because you know the vowels are very simple sound systems compared to consonants, the child begins with vowels. It's a natural process of beginning with vowels. And then after vowel, then the child begins to mix up vowels and consonants, ma, ba, ba, like that. That is combination, and that is babbling. And babbling is a continuous process of uttering language. When the child says like that, you sometimes believe that the child is saying something which you are not able to understand. But the child says in his or her own words. And now, after this babbling stage, the next stage is one word utterance. Clearly, the child will say some word which can be meaningfully communicated to some specific people, particularly mother. That is one word stage, and when the child says that, the mother is able to understand what the child wants to say. That is one word stage. And then comes the next higher stage called two word utterances, and that we call the telegraphic speech. After one word for some days, now the child learns to say simultaneously two words, more meaningfully communicated, and usually having noun and some verb like things, two words communicated. And then want telegraphic speech, mommy sheet, means something is like that, something he wants to communicate, and usually it's a communication between mother and the child. That is most commonly, but others can also understand the two word utterances, or we call it the telegraphic speech. And then finally the basic adult sentence structure. Then one time comes when the child is able to communicate formally whatever he or she wants to communicate in full language, full sentences, and like that. And now this is the kind of thing, but I'm saying that if I have only one bulb working here, if it goes out, I will not be able to continue unless the line comes. Then theories of language acquisition. Now, when we say that these are the stages of language development, naturally there are some principles which govern our language development as we grow up. And those are called, I have already told you, theories are always more important things. Not only important, there are also many things about one aspects of human development. Many theories are there, and likewise also language development has been explained by many such theories. And those theories are behavioristic theory, innateness theory, cognitive theory, interactionist theory. These are the four theoretical backgrounds explaining the language behavior of human beings, or the language development of human beings. Behavioristic theory is a simple, straightforward answer to language development. The question is, how do we develop our language, or how children grow up in learning language? This is what is the question, and how different people, different psychologists have answered and addressed these questions are called the theories of development. One, behavioristic theory says that children innate adults, a very way of behaviorist term of famous learning theorists, and they say that children imitate adults. Whatever the adults are doing, the children have a great capacity to imitate them. And whenever they imitate the adults, and occasions arise like this, for some imitation they get rewarded, for some imitation they get punished. Reward punishment means yes or no. If the child is saying something and the mother is smiling, then the child is getting a reward, that he or she is saying he is doing something right. Therefore, that behavior continues and develops. And when they get what they want or praised, or supposing some they said something and the mother understood and behaved in a way that the child is satisfied. The mother understood that the child is asking for food. Then the mother provides like that. And that is the way the child learns the language as an adaptive process of learning. There are the wants of the child. The child communicates those wants through certain behavioral expressions, including language, some sort of language. The mother gives or reinforces that behavior, and then the child acquires that. It is in this process the child is acquiring language. This is one aspect of the theory. I will be telling in detail. And the second attempt is innateness. Now the question is whether the child, as per the behaviorist model, learns the language or that is something else. Chomsky, the theory of innateness of language was propounded by Chomsky, who said that a child brain contests special language mechanism at birth. That means a child is not learning because the mother is doing that or reinforcing. A child is learning because he has been given certain kinds of devices when he or she is born, and he called it language acquisition devices, LAD. LAD is a kind of system available to a newborn child, that helps him or her to learn the language. And therefore, he proposed an innate theory of language. Language is, we have things about language as and when we are born. If had it not been there, if we did not have the proper language acquisition devices, whatever may be the environment, we will not be able to learn the language, because other animals are not also able to learn the language as human beings. Child is learning. Therefore, language acquisition device is one of the important thing. And then come cognitive theory, Piaget. I will be describing them. Language is just one aspect of child overall intellectual development. The child is growing in all aspects of life, and language is one aspect of that development. The child is not growing only by language, he is growing simultaneously in many other mental characteristics. And language is one supportive system for that. And then interaction theory. Interaction theory says that language development is dependent on the characteristic interaction of the child with the caregivers, or in what way parents interact with the child, that will help the proper language development of the child. If the child is not able to say something for some months, then it may be a problem that the child is not being properly interacted by mother or father or in the family. That is, if the child is not properly proper language stimulations are not given to the child at different developmental stages, language development will be hampered. And that is what is interactionist theory. Now, let me I told you what is language acquisition device. Chomsky's theory, language acquisition device means the child has certain basic hardware programs in his or her mind. It is something available in him or her so that language can be learned. Without that language acquisition device, language cannot be learned by a child. That is the kind of thing. And there are all these theories are explained. Idea all these theories are explained very lucidly in your book or booklet, and then evidences also are being provided. Each theory is a long question. I told you, each theory, including behavioristic, including innate theory, including cognitive theory, every one is a kind of long question for you. And whenever you will be writing a long question, you will have to explain what is that theory, what are the different demands or characteristics of that theory, and some evidences, research evidences. It is possible. Yes, anybody? Rupali, do you want to ask something? Yes, anybody if you want. Sonali Suchismita, what is your question? You raise your hands. Anything, any problem? No. Anyway, now what is the research evidence? Supposing you see evidence in support of innate theory. It is written in your book. Let me tell you one evidence to support the innate theory of Chomsky. That is, Slobin has pointed out that human anatomy in particular is particularly adapted to production of speech. Unlike our nearest relatives, the great apes, we have evolved a vocal tract which allows the precise articulation. Now, I am telling you one example that there is some innate kind of speech. Innate kind of speech means when you, in the early part of the time, when you try to analyze a child's verbal input, you will find certain things which are not very much being given to him by learning or by any process. Supposing the cooing sound, every child cooings. It's not that given different opportunities, child cooing, babbling, whatever the basic things they learn, they begin it from huh, screen sharing. Somebody has shared the screen because I don't have the opportunity. Now you can go through the screen. There are certain evidences in support. Evidences you can read and understand. Limitations corner. Every question has given some evidences and some limitations. These are written in your book and you can go through them. Carry on, please carry on the. Yeah. Now next is about cognitive theory. I will be telling some details which you know also. Now, cognitive theory being proposed by Jean Piaget. You know Piaget's theory of cognitive development, which is also in part language development, and that is these theories suggest that there are four stages of cognitive development: the sensory motor stage, the pre-operation. This is an important question, therefore I am highlighting certain things. The sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, the concrete operational stage, and the formal operational stage. It happens to all kinds of development and particularly to language development also. That is, the sensory motor stage. The sensory motor stage means the child from approximately to 2 years. During this stage, a child has relatively little competence in representing the environment using images, languages, or symbols. As infant has no answer, awareness of the objects or people that are not immediately present at a given moment. Piaget called this is a lack of object permanence. Now, up to 2 years of age, the child is not having the capacity to express things in terms of symbols of language. Language, as we said, that language constitutes the symbols. The child is not able to express the language part by symbols or any other kind of thing. That is why, because symbols are not available to the child does not have the feeling of object permanence. Object permanence means if you, I mean, how can you know that the object permanence is not there? You bring a ball, show it to the child, and you put that ball behind a pillow while the child is watching. Now the child will not try to look for the ball because as soon as the object is away from him, from his visual sight, the object does not exist for him. Means up to 2 years of age, things exist only when it is present in the child's visual field. And if it goes out of his or her visual field, the child believes that the object is no more there. And that is called object permanence. Because the child, it proves that the child does not have the image about the object. Because he has no image, he doesn't form the image of the object, therefore he doesn't find the object permanence. And similarly, for certain things like this, cognitive theory says that this is the sensory motor stage of development in which all his learning, language, including language learning, are expressed by sensory and motor expressions, combinations, by crying, by making hands to move, whatever. That is the kind of thing. And then next stage is the pre-operational stage. The most important development at this time is language. Children develop internal representation of the world and allow them to describe people. Now, pre-operational, it is most important stage because during this stage, objects take shape, take image in the mind of the child. If the child sees a dog, sees a cat, now it has a representation in his memory system about the object. And that is why more the child is exposed to different kinds of objects, the child gathers more and more images during this period. And if there is for any kind of thing, if there is less stimulus for the child during this period, if the child does not get appropriate, for example, the child lives home with the support of a caretaker only, and the caretaker doesn't get enough time to give stimulation to the child, then this period will be affected. And that is pre-operational stage, when the child gathers for the future. Pre-operational means now he tries to find or tries to develop instruments for his development, images, other kinds of things, language devices, all kinds of language things the child gathers. The more the child gathers, the better will be his or her language development. And then these descriptions are there, you can read, understand. I am just highlighting the things. And now the concrete operational stage. Now, thank you. It's the line finally, but the net is not. Just after this, I will be sharing the screen. It will be better for me to uh, concrete operational stage. Now, the next stage is also more important because whatever the child has gathered as instruments of language, you can call as basics of language, then now he is able to utilize them. The child can describe it, a cat, because he or she has developed the symbols representing the cat in pre-operational, and he has developed other symbols, many things, and this period is called concrete operation.
Sir,
Yes.
all are included in cognitive by Piaget theory.
Huh. Including these are all. I am discussing Piaget's theory with reference to language development particularly. I am saying Piaget's theory. This is Piaget's theory of cognitive development. But language being a part of the cognitive development, I am referring how these stages are helping the development of language of the child also. Other than language, there are also other kinds of development. Do you get my point?
Okay, sir.
Piaget's theory is theory of cognitive development. Cognitive development means it includes all aspects of cognition, including perception, memory, learning, thinking, and all that. But here I am trying to say how cognitive development theory of Piaget is also useful in explaining language development. Because in the pre-operational stage, the child acquires symbols, images, some short ideas like that. And when it comes to concrete operation, 7 to 12 years, the child applies those symbols. The child is now, you understand, the child is now able to express things in different ways. Concrete operations they can make. The child can write a sentence, the child can write a small essay like that, because there are some concrete expressions of the language. Language is now coming to use, that now child comes to use the language at this stage. And then finally, formal operational stage. मोर ये आसिले मु शेयर कर देबी स्क्रीन टाको मोर आसिला लाइन मुई फॉर्मल ऑपरेशन टाको कहि दोछि सब गुडा लेखा हिची थिंग्स आर वेल रिटन हियर good examples are there, but this is a question. The question will be like this: explain Piaget's theory of cognitive development in relevance to human language development of human language among children. ତେଣୁ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟର କେମିତି ପିଆଜେ ଥିଓରି ରେଲିଭେଣ୍ଟ ତମେ ସେଇଟାକୁ ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ କରିବ, ଏଇଟା ଲେଖା ହେଇଛି ଏଥିରେ ସେଇଆ। ଆଚ୍ଛା ସାଦିଆ ତମେ ଇଏ କରିଦିଅ, ସ୍କ୍ରିନ୍ ସେୟାର କାଟିଦିଅ, କାରଣ ମୁଁ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଟିକେ ବଡ଼ ନହେଲେ ମତେ ତମ ସ୍କ୍ରିନରେ ମୁଁ ପଢିପାରିବିନି। ମୁଁ ସ୍କ୍ରିନ୍ ସେୟାର କରୁଛି, ଲାଇନ୍ ପଳେଇ ଆସିଲା, ମୁଁ ସ୍କ୍ରିନ୍ ସେୟାର କରୁଛି। ମୁଁ ଟିକେ ବଡ଼ ମାନେ କମ୍ପ୍ୟୁଟର ସ୍କ୍ରିନରେ ସେୟାର କରିବି ତ। Unit 1 language acquisition. ये जॉइन करया पे अछंती ना नाहंती? मते आ माने एटा के जॉइन करो नाहंती? हला now it's available in your screen. Language
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yes. Now because I cannot read small letters. I have covered building blocks, I have covered language acquisition, now stages of language acquisition, wing, babbling and all that, language acquisition and cognitive science in that, language and thought theories of language acquisition. We have discussed this table: behaviorist, innateness, cognitive. Now you see behaviorist theory and limitations of behavior theory. Why? What are the criticisms of behavior theory? Why other theories were developed? And then innate theory, Chomsky, and then Chomsky LAD, language acquisition device. What is LAD? That is there. I have explained. Evidence to support innate theory. Neuroscience has also identified specific areas of the brain. There are some, as you are asking, what are the evidences? Now we see neuroscience has also found that there are certain areas of the brain with distinctly linguistic function, notably Broca's areas and Wernicke's areas. एगुड़ा सब नुआ नुआ न्यू things which says that there is language acquisition divide. Then Chomsky's theory, now cognitive theory, sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational and formal operational. We have come to the stage that how 12 years and above children become language proficient. Formal operation. Formal operation means now they are experts in using their language exactly for the purpose being demanded with them. When they are appearing the examination, they know how to write a language. When they are talking with friends, they know how to write, how to talk to a friend. Now formal operation means there will be many more approaches, many more ways that the child or the person is now able to apply the language. That is formal operational stage. With this, and now cognitive theories over. Now input or integrationist theory. In contrast to work of Chomsky, more recent theorists have stressed the importance of the language input children receive from their caregivers. That I have already told you, that is some interactionist theory. Interactionist theory, they emphasize that whatever language development will take place, it will take place. We have language acquisition device, no doubt. Children have certain basic biological birth skills to acquire language, there is no doubt. But all children do not have similar language development because of the one of the most important factor. If we understand that every child is giving language acquisition device, if all children have same capacity to develop language, then why there is difference in the language development among children? Why each one child is very proficient in language while another is not able to talk appropriately? Why some children are late in speaking? What are these kind of things? Even although other things are the same. And this interactionist theory says that the way the caregivers largely major part is mother and also father and family members. The way they interact with the child, the way they communicate the child with in language terms, it becomes the richest source of the language development of the child. That is mother's communication, mother's interaction, mother's language play with the child. I'm limiting it only mother, but others are also important. That is the best part of the child's language development. If a child is having some kind of deficit in language development, the first responsibility goes to the caregivers and particularly mother. If otherwise, because most of the children are otherwise capable of acquiring the language. And then, and beyond that, next comes the biology of language acquisition. Biology of language acquisition. The biology of language acquisition. Some limitation, all theory, its advantages, limitation, you have to go through in detail. In half an hour time, one unit, we will have to just give you some idea. But the total thing you have to go for. The biology of language acquisition. Now, language, as you know, is not only an external event to the child, it has also different aspects of the human brain are responsible for processing, taking into storage, doing a lot of things with language development. That means there are many kinds of things, and human as Darwinian natural selection, as we people we grow up in learning things, learning language. Gradually, our brain has also been evolved as a very powerful system. You will not be, you can understand the thing, the way you are given the opportunity to grow, you will be able to develop your brain into that style. Your brain is very accommodative, which we called that the adjustability, natural selection, theory of natural selection, brain is modified. You will be observing what a 3 4 year child is doing in for telephone, sorry, mm, huh, mobile phone. You will be surprised to find that children doing so much of things, and that is because their brain is also growing up with respect to the kind of things they are exposed. That is what is there, and all those things they point out that as the child grows, there are certain maturational changes in the brain of the child. Gradually, the brain is getting, as you can say, matured to help the child learn more and more things the way his environment demands, the way he is expected to grow up. You know, तुमको example हिसाब रे कहली, आमे we people, you people, and your next generation. There is a huge gap with the same mobile. If you give it to a 5 year old child, sometimes you will be even asking to a 5 7 year old child to help you in your mobile functioning. They will be helping you. That is how the brain, because their brain is getting accustomed to these kind of things, and that is how language is also, as the person is growing, the brain is changing, environment is changing, and the brain is changing. Dissociation between language and general intelligence. Another important question is there always, it is a controversy always, whether language is related to intelligence. That means if someone is more intelligent, he will be more capable of using language, or he will have more language proficiency. Is intelligence directly related to language development and language proficiency? The answer is always it's not that. As you have yesterday discussed, creativity as a skill, some level of intelligence is required. And once that is there, that level of intelligence is there, a person can be as good a creative person as anybody else. Not that a very intelligent person will be very creative. Similarly, also, up to a specific level of intelligence, language development is facilitated. Below that level, language development hampers. But it is not that beyond that level, language will be better and better, or more, better language will be there. Therefore, language dissociation. The word dissociation, I don't say, I don't agree that it is a dissociation, but it is a kind of thing that it's not as it is expected. The intelligence, having higher intelligence, will be having better language development. It's not that. And then neural networks. Neural networks means it is like your software programs in your computer. For everything, whenever the child is growing about a language, he is developing schema, the neural network schemes, which are very common and precise consolidated programs for different activities. Supposing someone is good in writing an essay because he has developed a good program in his mind, a network, how to handle in writing essays. Someone is good at doing multiple choice question. He has developed how to conceptualize things in terms of language. Therefore, different language abilities have developed into different neural connections, and those are the facilitations. Now, this part is over. The next part, let me share the next slide. Unit 2, Block 3, Unit 2. Now, Unit 2, Language Processing, Comprehension and Language Expression. Now we come to the applied aspects. In the first phase, we were dealing with language acquisition, means the basic things, schemes, formats that are useful for the language. That is, as the child is growing, he is gathering kinds of instruments to be useful for him in the language development. And the next is language processing, comprehension, and language expression. These are some of the functional. We can call the first part, we dealt with as the structural aspects of language development. And next part, we will be dealing with the functional aspects of language development. Language at one side, it has it is a structural system, and at the other side, it is also functional. Now, କଣ ଅଛି ଆ ଭିତରେ? Functions of language. Speech act. Now, one of the very important function of the language in anybody's life is spoken speech. How do you communicate your speech with others? And that assures you in a lot of way about your success in life. A good speaker is always in advantage in the society. Therefore, speech act is also a functional aspect of the language and a very important aspect of language. Language helps you to become a speaker, and your development as a speaker is based on your language development. And next, propositional concept. The second element of communication concerns the propositional consent of a sentence. In communication, speakers want to convey certain ideas. And now, propositional communication means this is what I am doing now. I am trying to help you understand certain concepts, certain ideas, certain things. It is not that I am a speaker, or I am just I'm doing a speech act. It's not a speech act. I am trying to communicate to you. When you yesterday told me that is it possible for me to speak in Hindi, I didn't accept that challenge, because in Hindi I cannot make that propositional content in a good manner, good way. That is the kind of thing. And then propositional means how do you express things in very elaborate and distinct way so that the listener comes to gather, understand, and the message is appropriately communicated. Now, thematic structure. Thematic structure means finally in any kind of language communication, it will end up with a kind of summary. Supposing whatever I said, finally it has some kind of summary in your mind, then I have communicated in a good thematic manner. Just final sum up kind of things. You see, everywhere there is sum up. Sum up means that is theme, the internal core things, that is kind of thing. Now, structure of language, basic units of language, I have already told: phonemes, morphemes, higher level of linguistic analysis. These things you can read and understand. Phrase structure of sentence. Now, other things that you know, phrase, how the sentence are created, noun, verb, the kinds of things. About other things, these are the kind of sentence, noun, phrase, determiner, noun. These are the kinds of explanation that you can understand. Structure and a deep structure in sentence. Now, this is one thing I would like to explain. Now, sometimes you see that a sentence is structured in such a way that it gives you some common reference meaning. You understand certain things, but there are certain other things which has been included in that sentence, but you are not able to appreciate that, or you are not able to understand that, and that is what is a deep structure part of this communication or a sentence. Supposing a poem, whenever you are listening to a poem, there are certain deep structures. The modern poem, as you say, there are certain deep structures which many people don't understand. They consider it as something vague, but some deep structure is there. That is the kind of thing that whenever someone speaks, there are certain deep structures. When a philosopher is speaking certain things, you may not be able to go deep into that, but you understand what language he is saying, what he is saying. but you are not able to appreciate what is the inner thought about that. And that is what is the deep structure ideas about the sentence. Like that, this part is over. Processing language. First part is production of language. Semantic, syntactic, pragmatic. These are some of the, we can call it the functional aspects of language. Semantic means whenever you are using any language, you want to convey certain meanings out of that. That is semantic purpose. A language being used for a semantic purpose. You want to convey certain meaning about what you are saying. This is what I want to say. Now, syntactic means whenever you are saying, you have to say it in certain order. You cannot say, I am do going, or any changed order. That is the syntax, the grammatical way, the way of saying, that is some approved way of saying, that is syntactic. And pragmatic means that is having some worth for the listener. That is applicability, usability. That is the pragmatic kind of thing. Now, speech perception and comprehension. There are several other things. Now, one is, I'm giving some idea about this kind of thing. Speech perception and comprehension. And so up to this, any question? ଆମେ almost second unit cover କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଯାଉଛେ. ମୁଁ ଯାହା କହୁଛି ବୁଝି ହେଉଛି, ଶୁଭୁଛି ନା ନାହିଁ, that is also my problem. Online class ରେ anybody? Acha. Now, speech perception. Language in a written form, language in a listening to an orator in a meeting, or whatever in informal conditions, language has a different thing. But language is also the most important system for you to have your communication in your day-to-day, everyday life. You are talking to your friends, you are discussing with your friends, you are asking for something to a family member. These are very small, minor communications that you make. But those communications are not always in terms of the organized or total language skill. You just don't ask food to your with a full sentence. Give me one glass of milk, like that. You just water, like that. You ask water. Water means it is communicated. Therefore, speech perception is also an important part of the language communication, because in many situations we use abbreviated formats of language. And therefore, the other person has to understand what you want to communicate from a very brief communication. And speech perception and comprehension is that way very important to your life processes. And language development. Comprehension model of language development. Propositional representation of texts and reading. These are all things like technical issues, models, how different models explain the presentation of language, efficiency in the language presentation, and different kinds of things that you have to understand. Now it's already 1 hour over. The second part is over. Now coming to the third part, unit 3, block 3. Multilingualism and cognition. Now, this is another dimension about language development, which has become an issue for the last 1.5 century. Language, we know, we have certain things how to grow up and develop language. But now the question is, with the modernization, with this kind of development in science and technology, language is no more a single language for a child. Now, every child is exposed to two or three languages from the very beginning of life. You know, you, in your family, children are not speaking in Odia, although they belong to their mother tongue is Odia. They are speaking in Hindi. They are speaking in English. They are speaking in other languages. Many languages, multi-language. We call it multilingualism or bilingualism. Bilingualism means if someone is speaking in two languages or using two languages for each other communication. Multilingualism means many languages. And for some years, there was a kind of controversy whether it's good or bad. Bilingualism is good or bad. In the early part of its research on bilingualism, it was said that bilingualism creates cognitive confusion. Bilingualism is disadvantageous for growth of children. Bilingualism is not good for the mental health, mental development of children. Those kind of things were there. Around 1960s, people were against this bilingualism or for that matter, multilingualism. They were, those are said to be disadvantages. But subsequently, things improved, research improved, and research communicated that bilingualism, if or multilingualism, if provided in proper context and development, it becomes an advantage for the child. The child becomes cognitively more empowered by having a bilingual development or multilingual development than having unilingual development. But the development must begin at an appropriate time. If you are monolingual, if you speak one language from the very childhood till 7, 9, 10 years, then the second language will be a kind of load on you. And you will, if you learn, you in old, prior times, English as a second language was taught only after class 6, class 5. In sixth class, English was being taught. And during those time, many students were very poor in English. But now it has been shifted to early grades, which has a support system. Bilingualism has been identified: composite bilingualism, coordinate bilingualism. Composite bilingualism means when two languages they fuse together into one system of language. You know English, you know Odia, and your English and Odia language they are so mixed that you can simultaneously use them with equal force. Coordinate bilingualism means one is burden on the other. Your mental processing, whenever you are processing English, you cannot process Odia simultaneously with that. That is coordinate. Positive, additive bilingualism, subtractive bilingualism. There are many more concepts of bilingualism, multilingualism, and let me check what are the things. The structure of multilingualism. For many years, the popular belief was that multilingual persons should have learned all his or her language simultaneously in early childhood, and that he or she should have a native, like oral or written competence in all of them. Today, a broader definition of more accordingly, a person may be called multilingual if he or she uses his or her language on a regular basis and is able to switch off. Now, the concept of multilingualism is changing. I have already told you that the consequences are also being observed and the concept is also changing gradually. So, multilingual means when bilingualism, multilingualism comes under the same kind of idea, means whenever your languages are acquired and developed in such manners, what I have told you about compound bilingualism, compound language, means they are not being separated in your mental processing. They are one unit of processing. Whenever you are processing your first language, you are also simultaneously processing your second language. If you observe present day children speaking Hindi and Odia and English, you will never believe that they are speaking three languages. They are not conscious even they are simultaneously using three languages. That means that is a multilingual character. All the three languages are mixed in their system and their brain processing is happening in that way. And now language is acquired in a natural setting. And now why language, supposing that some kind of issues I am discussing about, supposing language being taught in school, we were taught Odia language at home, and then in school we were taught Odia and English language both. Now that is not a natural process of language development. When school time is over, no more English. Means the natural processing of language will not happen. It is very specific language processing. That is not a good multilingual character. That is there. Multilingualism in India. We know one of the most multilingual country. We have many official languages, and beyond that, we have more than 800 dialects and subdialects. Language, we can say we are a language-rich country where people are very much accustomed with many languages. Common. Then multilingualism in India that has been discussed. Relationship between language and their users. Code switching. Now, when you are using language as a multilingual, for every language you have developed a system of analytic codes. And whenever you are speaking in English, when you want to change it to Odia, you are making a code switch. And that code switching is available easily if your language development has become compounded with each other. If the development is not, if each language is a separate unit in your processing system, then it will not help you for code switching so easily. Whenever you are speaking in English, you can only speak in English and cannot change it to immediately to Oriya. Like that. These are some of the things that you have to go through. Rule governed of the language choice, mixing rule governed to. These are all kinds of things. Multilingualism and thinking. Now the question is whether a person having a single language processing will have the same capacity for thinking, because language aids thinking. We think through languages. The most of our thinking process is carried through our languages, formal languages. And now the question is, if thinking is in multilingual people as powerful as an unilingual people, or do they carry on the same processes of thinking, or there are any kind of differences among them? This is multilingualism and thinking concept. The advantages that multilinguals exhibit over monolinguals are not restricted to linguistic knowledge only, but extend outside the area of language and substantial, long-lived cognitive, social, personal, academic, and professional benefits. Researchers have found that multilinguals thinking process is more efficient, more powerful than unilingual's thinking process. That is the kind of thing. In cognitive, social, personal, in all domains, multilinguals have better facilities than unilinguals. That is the kind of thing. These are some kind of research evidences being. Then acquisition of a second language. Now, anything that you want to ask, because it's going to be only one-sided thing. Any common question, common thing that comes to your mind about language development? Do you want any kind of change or improvement in the process that we are discussing? ଆଉ କିଛି ଦରକାର କି? Because I believe that this in this kind of situation, having these online classes, actually we are supposed to ask you what is the kind of things, difficulties about you, and in that we will solve your problems. This is a
Sir,
language. Ah, yes.
sir, the pace in which we are covering the course is quite fast.
I'm going fast with respect to your course.
No, sir. As given the time that we have in our
Time that we
hand,
have
it
in
is
our
quite
hand.
fast.
ଜଣେ ପ୍ଲିଜ ସାଦିଆ ଜଣେ କହିସାର ବିକାଶ କହିବ ହଁ
अच्छा सर, जो भी हमारे पास टाइम मिला हुआ है ना, हम लोगों को जैसे 2 घंटे के क्लास में हम लोगों को एक एक ब्लॉक कंप्लीट करना है ना, वो काफी स्पीड है.
that is their provision. That is they are giving us 4 classes for one entire paper, 4 blocks.
यस सर.
But their idea is what, no, actually their idea is that you have to come prepared to the class. You have to ask questions that you are supposed to know better, to understand better, and we will have a kind of discussion. This is, they call it, they are not calling it as a class, they are calling it counseling session. Counseling means you have certain issues, certain problems, certain things that you are not able to understand. We will be there to help you. But because you have not been getting prepared previously, that is why we are going through and discussing some of the important points. But if you go through the material, you will, most of the things you will be able to understand by yourself. Material
यस
is
सर,
more.
दैट्स ट्रू.
But but the other class, the other paper that I am assigned is statistics, and there I will be doing certain things which, if you are not appropriately doing, it will be difficulty for you. It will be difficulty for you. Statistics part, because there are certain other things which relate to some specific understanding about the things, that is more important, I think. These theoretical papers and kind of things you can understand. Some, most of the things you will, as you read, you go through, you will understand. And there are certain things which you can also skip if it is not very much required for your answer. There are a lot of information there. That is the kind of thing. Any other question? Any other? Because
Sir, I would like to request, sir, can we repeat again the wait a minute, multilingualism and cognition? There are the maybe a lot of things are here, like one thing or second thing. Can we
Acha.
please, sir?
Yes, yes, yes. Now, multilingualism, bilingualism, multilingualism, and mental development, multilingualism and cognition. Now, as I have already told you, there were for a good period of time, around 50 years, in the research in psychology about bilingualism and cognitive benefits, advantages, limitations of bilingualism and multilingualism. In the early part, almost all researchers, they advocated that multilingualism is a mental handicap. That means if you learn more languages, then you will have to suffer from your cognitive deficits and cognitive misfunctioning or whatever. Around 1962, up to 1962, bilingualism, or for that matter, multilingualism, was considered to be not to be good for mental development. But around 1962, some researchers came with the opening issues that bilingualism, as it is not something wrong. Bilingualism can be a mental advantage, but can be better than multilingualism if the learning context of the language is made properly or appropriately. Learning context means, for example, they said that if you learn one language from childhood and then as you grow up in 11, 12 years, at 15 years, you learn another language, then the second language will be a kind of a burden to the first language and their cognitive functioning will be affected. But if a child learns both the languages simultaneously from the very childhood, then the language will be facilitative. They identified two terms: additive bilingualism, subtractive bilingualism. I am telling everything in the context of bilingualism because same fact are true about multilingualism. Additive bilingualism and subtractive bilingualism. Additive means when two languages are learned and they give better benefit in such context, they become additive. They are supportive to each other. Subtractive, subtractive, like that, additive and subtractive bilingualism. Similarly, also compound and many other terms have been developed to explain the concept of bilingual in unilingual mental characteristics. One is compound and coordinate bilingualism. That means it is said that bilingualism is facilitative, multilingualism is facilitative if they occur, happen, or given to the developmental process in appropriate time, in appropriate manner, in appropriate context. Otherwise, they may be a liability. That is also the present idea about multilingual, bilingual development. If it happens so good, it is good. If the developmental, during the developmental process, one language is affecting the development of other language or hampering the development, then both languages will suffer. That way, language development will happen in a negative way. That is what is the basic idea about bilingual, multilingual. As I have told you about code switching. Whenever you are, when you are multilingual or bilingual, sometimes your language is the development is such that you don't require a code switching. You automatically go from one language to another and it's a simultaneous process. But in some cases, it's a kind of code switching and it is difficult to be in two languages. These are some of the kinds of things about. Now, this part is over. Now let me go to the third part. Sorry, fourth. Unit 3 is over. Now, Unit 4. Language and speech disorder. Now it's a final conclusive part. Language development is a process of positive acquisition in the life of the individuals, people, and child. If you have adequate and proper development of language, you will be successful because it is one of the most significant aspects of human life. But if it is not adequately and properly developed by any reason, physical, social, psychological, whatever may be the reason, if the development is not proper and adequate, the person suffers. And that aspect leads to, in some situations, leads to some kind of disorders. We call them developmental disorders or speech disorder or language disorder, whatever. Means this refers to a group of people, a section of the people in the society who have either poor development or maladjusted development or whatever may be. They are not having the adequate development of language. And now there are some kind of first defining language and speech disorder. One, defining language. Language and speech are said to be disorder or impaired if they differ from what is considered the norm. That means for anything, We have a norm. And if it grossly violates the norm, anything, supposing you are physically deformed, because there is a norm about the human physical aspects. And if you devoid yourself, if you are devoid of those norms, then you are equally you are deformed. Someone we have two legs. If someone is not having two legs, then we say is a deformed or disorder, like that. Deformed here, deformed, and language disorder when the norm of the society, norm of the community is not being appropriately followed in someone's language development. It's a language disorder. As already indicated, the yardstick is embedded in the culture of each language. Now, norm means we have set it. Largely, it is a cultural basis of the language. You know, when you are talking to people in Odisha from different regions, Puri, they have a different language kind of expression. Bhadrak, they have a different language kind of expression. Like that. Those are cultural norms, social norms. Different norms are there for any kind of language to be spoken and to be written or whatever. And whenever there are gross deviations from those kind of norms, we call them as disorders. Disorders means gross deviation. Small deviations are not disorders. Gross deviations are kinds of disorders. Now, what are the different kinds of language disorders? Aphasia. Aphasia is an impairment of the language functioning caused by damage to the left hemisphere of the brain. There are different types of aphasia: Broca's aphasia, Winker's aphasia. Now, this is a kind of disorder happening due to the dysfunctional aspect of the human brain. Brain or dysfunctional conditions leads to aphasia. Wernicke's aphasia is caused by damage to the left temporal lobe of the brain. It is characterized by notable impairments in understanding of spoken words and sentences. What is aphasia? The person is not able to understand the spoken words or spoken sentences. When you speak to them, they will not be able to understand. And that is the kind of thing. People with Wernicke's aphasia have generally fluent phonetic and syntactic but semantically coherent speech. Means whenever these people, because they are not able to understand aphasia, speech and hearing, they are connected issues. Usually a person who cannot speak, cannot hear, will not able to speak properly. A person who cannot speak will not able to hear properly, because they are connected issues. Largely speech and hearing are one system of human functioning. And if these people aphasia, they are fluent in phonetics and syntactics, but semantically coherent speech. Semantically, they are not that efficient, like that. That is kind of thing. Broca's aphasia is caused by the damage. It has clearly written what kind of aphasia and what kind of behavior they show. Nothing to it. Then global aphasia is a combination of impaired comprehension and production of speech. In some cases, there is comprehension is okay, but production is poor. Some cases, production is okay, comprehension is poor, and in some cases, both are poor. That is, and these are some kinds of aphasia. And now, the second kind is autism. It's a developmental disorder. Another is a very common developmental disorder characterized by abnormalities in social behavior, language, and cognition. Autism we call a kind of disorder in which the person is self-involved. The person doesn't have as much necessary contact with the outside world. That is a kind of disorder, and that also relates to speech disorder, because the person is not socially involved. The social development or social attachment is not done, is not there with that child, and therefore that grows to a kind of language disorder, which is, it is a biological in origin, although the genes, you read, it's autism is a biological origin and it leads to some kind of thing. And autistics are kind of people who speak things in their own way which others cannot understand, and they also they believe in their own way of things. That is a kind of speech disorder. Learning disability. Learning disability is a kind of, actually these are not only language disorders. These are common disorders. Other disorders are included. Learning disability. Learning disability means some kind of disability in which a person having all other things intact, having mental, physical characteristics all intact and good, having nothing, having some difficulties in some issues and problems. That is kind of dyslexia. Learning, one kind of learning disability is dyslexia. Dyslexia has been around for a long time and has been defined in different ways. For example, dyslexia is not due to mental retardation, brain damage, or it is caused by the impairment. Dyslexia कौन हो? A disorder in children who, despite conventional classroom experience, fail to attain the language skills of reading, writing, and spelling commensurate with their intellectual abilities. That means they are not able to achieve the language functions as relevant to your age or as efficient as to their peers. Lekha, Podha, those things they are not able to do. This is a kind of learning disability. Learning disability means they don't have any specific issues with them, but they develop it like this. That is dyslexia. See, several other learning disabilities are there. Dyscalculia. Some children are not able to calculate mathematical they cannot understand and they cannot go for mathematical calculations. These are some kinds of things. And Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's is a kind of old age disorder in which old people they forget the process and proper use of language, and there are many reasons for that. Alzheimer's problems, specific language impairment, phonological disorders, dyspraxia. These things you will read. The development of dyspraxia disorder is characterized by impairment in the ability to plan and carry out sensory motor tasks. That means these are all different kinds of disorders are being there. It's not only language or speech disorder, voice disorder, speech and sound disorder, articulation. These are some of the formal disorders. Articulation disorder means when someone is saying something, he is not able to articulate in proper way. Supposing he is saying he wants to speak katha, then he says tatha. Articulation is not right. You have come across those kind of people who make different articulations which are not proper. Articulation disorder, phonetic disorder, fluency disorder, not being able to say things in a minimum fluent ways, apraxia of speech. These things you can understand. There is nothing good. A specific disorder, and it says that this is what is the kind of thing that you have to. But one thing I have to say, besides these kind of things, there are also many other language and speech disorders. Some very common language and speech disorders are not being included here in your material. You can have them. Let me see if I have those things with me. I have gone through the thing, but I find that some of the common disorders are not being there. Acha. Finally, I am sharing something with you. Let me see if those difficulties are there. Acha. You see, I have some material about language development, and it's in your screen. If you like, you can take your screenshot. Structure and properties of language, which can be questions from this unit. I tell you, one, when I have precisely discussed language is an extremely rich system of symbols, whatever is written in your course, and hence basis of language are symbols plus organizational rules that leads to thought, that leads to communication, plus higher order cognition. The following are some important properties of language. One, language is structured. Two, language is creative. Three, language is interpersonal. When you are asked what is the functions of language, or what you do about language, or characteristics of language, these are some of the points you can explain. Language is meaningful. Language is referential. These are all we have discussed there. But in some points, I say it here. Then structure of language, phonemes, morphemes, words, phrases, and then sentences. Like here I have given a table: phoneme, smallest speech unit, no meaning; morpheme, smallest meaningful unit; words, meaning from referent plus image; phrases, meaning, referent, image, global meaning; sentences, meaning, referent. As we move on in the structure, things are added like this. Phoneme re kebala unit tara meaning nahi, morpheme re meaningful unit, smallest. A table you can add to your understanding of the language structure. Then the structural unit, this is called the structural units of language, and this is called the functional hierarchy of language. First is the syntax, then semantics, then pragmatics, like this: syntax, structure; semantic, structure plus meaning; pragmatic, structure plus meaning plus context, like that. Then language acquisition, development, predisposition or antecedents, cognitive pre-linguistic phase. The development, I mean, we have discussed about the pre-linguistic phase, but here is another point, that predisposition or antecedents, that is there with the language. Language development begins with your ability to have certain things. It is like a young infants demonstrate specialized language learning abilities by showing selective attention, voice change, and like that. Atapare aramala pre-linguistic crying, cooing, babbling, and then early linguistic one-word phase, two-word phase, like that. Similarly, there are theories. This is a summary note about your language development, all those things. All things are there. Interactionist perspective, everything is there. If you want, I can send it to somebody's WhatsApp. Someone in your group may contact me.
Can you send it to my WhatsApp?
Yes, you. I will send it. I will send it to you. You share it with others.
Yes. I will share it with the group.
Then, do you have my phone number?
Yes.
कौन सुजीत कौन कौन?
Sir, I can hear you, sir.
हाँ नहीं. Do you have my phone number?
Yes, sir, I have.
हाँ. Then you do one thing. Give me an okay message. I will be sending it to your WhatsApp. You are now. I hope you are all a group. You can share with each other.
Yeah, I will say.
Because this will be, I hope
Thank
this
you.
is some summary of that kind of thing. Okay, let me see also.
Yes, sir.
Ah, speech errors. Now, another thing is that last part we have discussed about disorder or errors in speech and language. Speech error, I have something types of speech error: shift error, exchange error, anticipation error, preservation error, addition error, deletion error. All those things I have discussed, including the structure of the year. This is also another, these two things I'll send you for your further reference. Any question now? Sujit, do you want to ask anything?
Sir, one thing, sir, single system hypothesis or dual system hypothesis?
Single system,
Hypothesis.
মানে monolingual hypothesis, bilingual না কোউ বিষয়
Sir, single system hypothesis or dual system hypothesis?
ମାନେ କାହା ବିଷୟରେ ପଚାରୁଛ, କୋଉ ଇସ୍ୟୁରେ?
Sir, language is a multilingualism, right?
ହଁ ସେଟା ପରା କହିଲି, single system hypothesis. Whenever bilingual multilingual development is there, that is compound coordinate bilingualism. Supposing good metaphor is there, when supposing there is a tank filled in water and you have two taps to dispose water in different ways. गोटे कुंडरे दीटा टैप लगी এবং সেই যে দুইটা ট্যাপ লাগিছি সেই ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল সিঙ্গল সিস্টম হিসাবে এইটা খুললে এইটার পানি বাহারুছে, সেইটা খুললে সেইটার পানি বাহারুছে। তম ভিতরে যদি ইংলিশ আর ওড়িয়া ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ দুইটা ଅଛି, যদি ইট ওয়ার্কস লাইক এ সিঙ্গল সিস্টম, ইট ইজ নট বিং কোঅর্ডিনেটেড। দ্যাট মিন্স এই ট্যাপটা খুললে ওড়িয়া বাহারিব, সে ট্যাপটা খুললে ইংলিশ বাহারিব। That is a single system hypothesis. And but if two systems are connected, ମାନେ ମୁଁ ମାନେ ତମକୁ ଏଇଆ ଏକ୍ସାମ୍ପଲ ଦିଆହଉଛି, ସେଥିରେ ଦିଟା କୁଣ୍ଡ ଅଛି, ଦିଟା କୁଣ୍ଡ ଗୋଟିଏ ଗୋଟିଏ ପାଣି ଟ୍ୟାପ ଲାଗିଛି। ତମର ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦରକାର ଯୋଉ ପାଣି ଟ୍ୟାପରୁ ପାଣି ନେବା କଥା ସେତେବେଳେ ତମେ ଖୋଲିକିରି ନେଇପାରିବ। That is your two languages have been separated and they are single. But when a common tap is connecting both the time, ଦିଟା କୁଣ୍ଡକୁ ଗୋଟେ ଟ୍ୟାପ କନେକ୍ଟ କରାଯାଇଛି, ତମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଖୋଲୁଛ ଦି ପଟୁ ଆସୁଛି। that is called a combination or multi-level. That is compound bilingualism, মানে এটা টেকনিক্যাল টার্ম, মানে the compound theory of bilingualism, coordinated theory of bilingualism. ତାକୁ କୋଉଥରେ ସିଙ୍ଗଲ କଣ ତାକୁ କହିଛନ୍ତି?
Single system or dual system?
ହଁ, ସିଙ୍ଗଲ ସିଷ୍ଟମ, ଡୁଆଲ ସିଷ୍ଟମ, ଯୋଉଟାକୁ ମୁଁ ତମକୁ କହିଲି। ଦିଟା ମନେକର ଜଣେ ଇଂଲିଶ ଆଉ ଓଡିଆ ଦିଟାକ ଏକାଧିକ କ୍ରମେ କହିପାରୁଛି, ଇଂଲିଶ କହିଲା ବେଳେ ଓଡିଆ କହୁଛି, ଓଡିଆ କହିଲା ବେଳେ ଇଂଲିଶ କହୁଛି, they are going in a same way. That means this is a multiple system or dual system, whatever you say. Single system means ଓଡିଆ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ଗୋଟେ ବାଟେ ପ୍ରୋସେସିଂ ହଉଛି, ଇଂଲିଶ ଲାଙ୍ଗୁଏଜ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ବାଟେ ପ୍ରୋସେସିଂ ହଉଛି। ସେ ଓଡିଆ ଇଂଲିଶ ଦିଟାକ ଏକାଠି ମିଶେଇ ପାରୁନି।
Okay, sir.
ହଉ, ଠିକ ଅଛି। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ତମେ ମତେ ଦେଇଦିଅ ମେସେଜ ମୋ ଇଏରେ, ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ସଆପ ରେ।
Sir, ମୋ ହ୍ୱାଟ୍ସଆପ ରେ ଟିକେ ଛାଡି ଦେଇଥିଲେ, ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କ ନମ୍ବରଟା ମୋ ପାଖରେ ଅଛି।
ତମ ଏଇଟାକୁ ମୁଁ ପଠେଇ ଦଉଛି। ହଉ, ମୁଁ ପଠେଇଦେବି, ଦି ଜଣଙ୍କୁ ପଠେଇଦେବି, ତମେ ମତେ ଇଏ କରିଦିଅ।
ସାର୍
ରଖିଲି।
ସାର୍ ନମସ୍କାର ସାର୍।
ହଁ ବନଜା, ତମେ ପଠେଇଲ?
Yes, sir, I will do.
ମୁଁ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ପଠଉଛି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା।
Okay.
सर
ହଁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଟିକେ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହଉଛି ସାର୍ ଟିକେ ମୁଁ ଆଗକୁ ମୋର ଫ୍ୟୁଚର ସାଇକୋଲୋଜିରେ ଦେଖୁଛି
ହଁ
ତ
ହଁ
ଟିକେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ମୁଁ ବହିଟା ପଢୁଛି ସାର୍ ଟିକେ ମତେ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହଉଛି ଟିକେ ଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ଭଲ କିନା ହେଇପାରୁନି ନା ବୁଝୁଛି ମୁଁ ଏମଏ ବି
ନାଇଁ
କରିଛି
ନାଇଁ
ସାଇକୋଲୋଜି
ନାଇଁ ସେ କାହିଁକି ତମକୁ ଥରକରେ ହବନି, ଟିକେ ସମୟ ଦେଇକିରି ଦି ତିନି ଥର ସେଇ ବହିଟାକୁ ପଢିବାକୁ ପଡିବ। ଆଉ ଯଦି ନିହାତି କେତେବେଳେ ଅସୁବିଧା ହେଲା ସେଇ ପର୍ଟିକୁଲାର କନସେପ୍ଟ ମତେ ଟିକେ ଫୋନ କରିକି ଟାଇମ କହିବ, ମୁଁ ସେଇ ଟାଇମ ଅନୁସାରେ ମୁଁ ଯଦି କହିଥିବି ତମକୁ କହିବି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ହେଲା
ସେଇଟା ମୁଁ ଆପଣଙ୍କ ପାଖରେ ଆଜ୍ଞା ସେଇଟା ମୁଁ
ହଁ
ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ
ମୁଁ
ଟିକେ
ଟାଇମ ମାନେ ମୋର ପୁଣି ଟାଇମ ଦରକାର ତ, ତମେ ଲେଖିକି ରଖିବ, ଗୋଟେ ଥରରେ ମତେ ପଚାରିଦେବ, ମୁଁ କହିବି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ
ହେଲା
ସାର୍।
ରଖିଲି।
Sir, I have sent a message.
ହଁ ମୁଁ ପଠଉଛି, ସାଙ୍ଗେ ସାଙ୍ଗେ ମୁଁ ପଠଉଛି।
Again.
Excuse me, sir.
ହଁ ୟେସ୍
Sir, the summarized notes are there of this chapter only, or we can get the summarized note of all blocks? Yes, sir. The one you have showed right now, na?
what
The file
summarize?
that.
I am sending you
Yeah, sir.
I am sending you some kind of materials. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Some materials, extra materials I'm giving you, which I hope will be easier to you to
To understand
get,
the subject better, right?
to understand the, yeah. I hope it will be easier.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
ମୁଁ ପଠେଇ ସାରିଲା ପରେ ମତେ କନଫର୍ମ କରିଦବ, ତାପରେ ମୁଁ ଇଏ କରିବି।
Okay, sir.
सर ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ ସ୍ମଲ୍ ରିକ୍ୱେଷ୍ଟ ଯେ ସବୁ କ୍ଲାସ୍ ସରିଲା ପରେ ଯଦି ଆପଣ କିଛିଟା ଇମ୍ପୋର୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ ଲଙ୍ଗ କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚିନ୍ ଆନ୍ସର ସବୁ ବ୍ଲକ୍ ୱାଇଜ୍ ଯଦି କିଛିଟା ମେନସନ୍ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତେ ତ ବେଟର ହୁଅନ୍ତା ଆମମାନଙ୍କ ଲାଗି।
ହଁ ଦେଖିବା ତ କହିବି, ମତେ ନେକ୍ସଟ ଇୟର କହିବେ, ମୁଁ ନେକ୍ସଟ ଇୟର ଲାଷ୍ଟ ପାର୍ଟ ବେଳକୁ କିଛି କ୍ୱେଶ୍ଚିନ୍ କହିଦେବି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ତମ
ସାର୍
ତମ
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ସାର୍।
ନମ୍ବର ହେଲା ଲାଷ୍ଟ 50065।
Yes, sir.
ହଁ ମୁଁ ଦି ଜଣଙ୍କୁ ପଠେଇ ଦଉଛି।
Okay. Sir, I have got the message.
ତା ପାଖକୁ ବି ପଠଉଛି
Aଜ୍ଞା।
କିନ୍ତୁ ତମ ନିଜ ଭିତରେ now it is your thing to
I have already said this to the group, sir.
ଦେଖିଦିଅ ଜିତୁ ବି ଦେଖିଦିଅ
ସାର୍ ପାଇଗଲି ସାର୍
ହେଁ
ସାର୍ ମିଳିଗଲା ସାର୍
ପାଇଗଲ ତ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ସାର୍
ହଁ
ଥ୍ୟାଙ୍କ ୟୁ ସାର୍
ହଁ ରଖିଲି ମୁଁ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ସେୟାର
ସାର୍
କରିଦେବ ତ
ସାର୍ 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 ନମସ୍କାର ସାର୍
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
हाँ जी।
क्या हम एनरोलमेंट नंबर अभी इसमें दे सकते हैं?
नहीं, कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है अभी मीटिंग में एनरोलमेंट नंबर शेयर करने की आपको।
ओके, थैंक यू।
यू वेलकम। बाय बाय।
बाय। Class over.